All right, so are you ready to dive in?
Oh, absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome. Because today we're going to be taking a look at a video from the Sidemen YouTube channel.
Okay.
It is the 20 Women vs. 2 Sidemen Angry Ginge and Danny Aarons edition.
Oh, I've heard of this one.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the Sidemen, they are a British YouTube group.
Right.
They've been around for a long time. They have millions and millions of subscribers. And they do all kinds of content, pranks, challenges, gaming videos, music, all that kind of stuff. And this particular video is from their dating series. So the premise is they've got 20 women who are lined up, and they've got 2 of the Sidemen members, in this case, Angry Ginge and Danny Aarons.
Right.
They basically go down the line, and they have like a very brief first impression of each of the women, and they have to decide yes or no.
So it's like speed dating almost?
Exactly like speed dating.
Yeah.
But with the added twist that the women then get to decide which of the 2 Sidemen they want to go on a date with.
Okay, so the power dynamic shifts.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's kind of it's a double-edged sword, you know?
Right.
You've got the initial pressure of like making a good first impression.
Yeah.
But then you've got the added pressure of knowing that even if you say yes to someone, they might not say yes to you.
Oh, that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
It does. And it makes for some very entertaining and awkward moments.
I bet.
Yeah.
I can already imagine the kind of shenanigans that might ensue.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of that. So we're going to break down some of the highlights of the video and kind of talk about what we observed, you know, some of the interesting social dynamics, the dating strategies that were employed, and just the overall cringe factor.
That's always a good time. So where do we begin?
Well, I think it's important to start right at the beginning with those first impressions because, you know, you only get one chance to make a first impression.
That's true.
And in this case, they're making these decisions in a matter of seconds.
Right. They don't have a lot of time to think it over.
Exactly. They're just going with their gut instinct, which sometimes works out great.
Yeah.
And sometimes leads to some pretty questionable choices.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So were there any first impressions that stood out to you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Right off the bat, you see Ginge and Danny kind of falling into these patterns.
Okay.
You know, Ginge is very much like drawn to a certain type of look.
Okay.
He's very upfront about, you know, what he finds attractive.
Right. He's not playing coy.
No, not at all. Danny's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I was going to say he's a little bit more unpredictable.
Yes, unpredictable.
You never quite know what's going to catch his eye.
Oh, interesting. So was there anyone who caught both of their attention right away?
Well, there was one woman in particular who made quite the impression.
Oh.
Tell me more. Her name is Farida, and she's originally from Algeria.
Okay.
And she comes up and she introduces herself, and she's got this very, like, striking look, you know?
She's very confident. She's got great style. And Danny is immediately smitten.
Really? What about Ginge?
Ginge, on the other hand, he says no right away.
Wow, just like that? Did he say why?
He doesn't really give a reason, and this kind of sparked a lot of discussion online.
I can imagine. People love to dissect these kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
So what were some of the theories floating around?
Well, some people were saying that maybe it was just a coincidence.
Right.
You know, maybe he just wasn't feeling it.
It happens.
Others were speculating that maybe there was a subconscious bias at play.
Interesting.
You know, maybe he wasn't as drawn to her because of her background or her ethnicity.
That's definitely a possibility.
It's hard to say for sure what was going through his mind.
Of course.
But it definitely raises some interesting questions about how we form judgments.
Especially in those split-second first impression situations.
Exactly. And it also kind of highlights the power dynamic at play, you know?
Right, because even though he said no, she still has the ultimate decision.
Exactly.
That's got to sting a little bit.
It does. It does. And later on in the video, we find out that she actually chose Danny.
Oh, no, poor Ginge. So was there anyone else who made a memorable first impression?
Oh, yeah. There are a few others who stood out. One woman in particular, Mercedes Valentine.
Okay.
She made quite the entrance.
What did she do?
Well, later on in the video, we find out that she was actually in the Sidemen's OnlyFans Olympics video.
Well, hold on. Back up a second. The Sidemen have an OnlyFans Olympics.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole other rabbit hole we can dive into another time.
I'm intrigued, but we can save that for later. So this woman, Mercedes, she was in their OnlyFans Olympics video. That's got to be a conversation starter.
It is. It is. And it definitely made an impression on both Ginge and Danny.
I bet. It's like she's bringing this whole other layer of baggage to the table.
Right. You can't help but wonder what their reactions were like when they recognized her.
Oh, I would have loved to see their faces.
Right.
It's a reminder that we're not just meeting individuals.
Yeah.
We're meeting their online personas, their reputations, and all the preconceived notions that come with them.
Exactly. And in this case, it's like their online presence is colliding with their real-life persona in this very public way.
It makes you think about how much our past experiences and our online footprint can really color these initial encounters.
It does. It does. And it adds this whole other layer of intrigue to the whole thing.
So we've got these first impressions flying around, but then there's the added element of the date challenges.
Right.
Can you tell me a bit more about those?
Oh, the challenges. This is where things get really interesting.
I'm all ears.
So once the initial selections are made, and the women have chosen who they want to go on a date with, the producers throw in these crazy challenges to kind of spice things up.
I'm sensing a theme here of pushing people out of their comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're all about creating these awkward and hilarious situations.
I love it. So what kind of challenges are we talking about?
Well, they make Ginge and Danny do everything from mimicking Danny's mannerisms to making up riddles on the spot to wearing a shock collar.
A shock collar?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah, they don't hold back.
That's wild. What was the reasoning behind that one?
Well, I think they were trying to throw Danny off balance. Make him even more unpredictable.
I can see that.
And it definitely worked.
I bet it led to some interesting moments.
Oh, it did. It did. Some of the things he said with that shock collar on were pure gold.
I could only imagine.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating is that it didn't seem to scare the women off.
Right.
You'd think that being subjected to a shock collar date would be a deal breaker.
You would think so, but some of the women actually seem to find it amusing.
Really? So is there something about this kind of outrageous, unpredictable behavior that can actually be attractive?
That's a good question, and I think it's something we'll have to explore further as we dive deeper into this video.
I'm definitely curious to see how these challenges play out and how the women respond to them.
Yeah, me too. It's like they're testing the limits of what's acceptable in the dating world.
And what might actually work, even if it seems counterintuitive.
Exactly.
This is shaping up to be a fascinating deep dive.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface.
I can't wait to see what other craziness unfolds.
Oh, trust me, there's plenty more where that came from.
Well, then let's get to it. I'm ready for the next level of this Sidemen dating saga.
All right, let's do it.
It's like they were almost setting them up for failure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I think the producers knew exactly what they were doing.
Right.
They were trying to create these Sidemen moments.
Yeah.
And just see how Ginge and Danny would react.
And how the women would respond to that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's like they were testing the boundaries of social etiquette, you know? Like,
right.
How far can you push things before it just becomes too cringe?
And is there a line? Or is it all relative?
That's a good question. And I think it really depends on the individuals involved, you know?
Right.
Like, some people are just more comfortable with awkwardness than others.
True.
And some people are really good at using humor to deflect those awkward situations.
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot in the video, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, remember Ginge's date with Georgia?
The one with the biscuits?
The one with the strategically placed biscuits?
Yeah.
They made him act completely self-absorbed the whole time.
Oh, no.
Like constantly redirecting the conversation back to himself.
Oh, my goodness.
He even pretended to fall asleep while she was talking about her life.
That's brutal.
It was so cringe-inducing. But here's the thing. Georgia just rolled with it.
Really?
She didn't seem fazed at all.
That's impressive.
It was like she was in on the joke, you know?
Yeah, like she had a good sense of humor about it.
Exactly. And I think that says a lot about her personality.
Definitely, it shows a certain level of confidence and self-assurance to not let that kind of behavior get to you.
Right. It's like she's able to see the humor in the situation and not take it personally.
Which can be really attractive.
Oh, absolutely.
It shows you're not easily rattled. You can handle whatever life throws your way.
Even a date with a guy who's pretending to be a narcissist.
Even that. So were there any other dates that stood out in terms of awkwardness?
Oh, yeah. There were a few. Danny's date with Reniki was another one that had me cringing.
Reniki, the woman from Jamaica.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, what happened there?
Well, they stuck him with that shock collar again.
Oh, no. Not the shock collar again.
Oh, yeah. And this time they told him to act like a beta male.
A beta male? What does that even mean in this context?
I think they were just trying to mess with him. You know, like give him these ridiculous instructions and see what he would do.
And how did he handle it?
Well, let's just say it led to some very interesting moments.
I can imagine. Give me an example.
Okay, so at one point, he asks Reniki to slap him across the face.
Whoa, hold on.
And call him Mummy.
He did not.
Oh, he did! I couldn't believe my ears when he said that.
That's next level awkwardness.
It was so out of left field, so unexpected, and yet, somehow, it worked.
What do you mean it worked?
She laughed and agreed to a second date.
No way. Serious?
I'm serious. It was like she was into the whole weirdness of it.
That's wild. It makes you wonder if there's something about pushing boundaries, about subverting expectations that can actually create a spark.
It's like he's playing with fire and the women are drawn to the heat.
Maybe it's that sense of danger.
Yeah.
That feeling that you're in the presence of someone who's not afraid to break the rules.
Right, and it's not your typical dating strategy.
Definitely not.
But hey, it seemed to work for him.
It did. It did. It's a reminder that attraction can be a very complex and often illogical thing.
Absolutely. What might repel one person could be incredibly alluring to another.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to dating.
And speaking of unpredictable dates, we can't forget about Ginge's date with Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. She initially chose Danny, right?
She did, but she ended up going on a date with Ginge.
Interesting. So what happened there?
Well, the producer's instructions for this one were pure evil.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They told Ginge to bombard her with nonsensical riddles and quotes.
Oh, no. Poor Tennessee.
I know, right? Like, who wants to be subjected to bad riddles on a first date?
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was, but somehow Ginge managed to pull it off.
Really? How did he do that?
I think it was his genuine awkwardness. You know? Like,
Right.
He was clearly trying his best, but the riddles were so bad they were almost good.
Like anti-jokes.
Exactly. They were so nonsensical that you couldn't help but laugh.
I love that.
And Tennessee seemed to appreciate his effort.
So maybe bad humor is sometimes better than no humor at all.
That's a good question, and I think it depends on the context. You know, like if
Okay.
you're trying too hard to be funny, it can come across as insincere.
Yeah.
But if you're just being yourself and you happen to be a little bit awkward,
Hmm.
it can be endearing.
It's like you're letting your guard down.
Right, and you're not afraid to be vulnerable. And
Yeah.
I think that's what Tennessee responded to.
She saw the real Ginge
Mm-hmm.
beneath all the bad riddles.
Yeah.
Exactly. She saw the guy who was trying his best, even if it meant making a fool of himself.
And that can be incredibly attractive.
It can, because it shows that you're not taking yourself too seriously.
Right.
You're able to laugh at yourself.
That's-
And that's a really important quality to have in any relationship.
I agree. So out of all these dates, was there one that was the most awkward, the most cringeworthy?
Oh, that's a tough one. There were so many contenders. But I think the double date with Sophia takes the cake.
Oh, Sophia, the one who flashed them in the initial round?
Yeah, that's her. And for this date, they had to act like obsessed train enthusiasts.
Train enthusiast, seriously.
Seriously complete with conductor hats.
I can't even imagine.
And it was just a train wreck from start to finish.
I bet. Give me the highlights.
Well, at one point, one of them drops the line, "Can we run a train on you?"
They did not.
Oh, they did. And it was just so cringeworthy.
That's a tough one to recover from.
It is, but
Yeah.
Sophia handled it like a champ.
Really? How did she respond?
She just brushed it off with a, "We'll see how the next date goes."
That's amazing. She's got nerves as steel.
It's chill. She does. It's like she's seen it all.
Yeah, she's not easily phased.
And I think that's what makes her so intriguing.
It's like she's the conductor of this crazy train,
Mhm.
and Ginge and Danny are just along for the ride.
Exactly. And she is in control.
I love that. So we've seen a lot of awkwardness, a lot of cringe,
Mm-hmm.
but were there any genuinely sweet or heartwarming moments in these dates?
You know, there were a few moments where you could see a genuine connection forming,
Okay.
like despite all the craziness.
Despite all the producer manipulation.
Yeah, exactly. It was like Ginge and Danny were able to break through the facade
Yeah.
and show their true selves.
And connect with the women on a deeper level.
Yeah.
That's really cool to see.
It's like a reminder that even in the most contrived situations,
Yeah.
real human connection is still possible.
It gives you hope.
It does. It does. So we've covered a lot of ground here. But I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this Sidemen dating saga.
I agree.
There's so much more to unpack.
So much more awkwardness to analyze.
So much more cringe to dissect.
I'm ready for it. Bring on the next part of this deep dive.
Let's do it. You know, it's funny because you'd think with all those producer shenanigans and all the crazy challenges, it would be impossible to find any real connection.
Right. You'd think it'd be all about the laughs and the cringe.
Exactly. But there were actually a few moments where I was like, wait a minute, is this real?
Yeah. Like, are they actually vibing right now?
Yeah, it was wild.
So tell me about some of those moments.
Well, one that stands out is Danny's date with Aaron.
Okay.
The one where he had to do those impressions.
Oh, the impressions. I remember that. Wasn't his Goku impression particularly memorable?
Oh, man, don't even get me started on the Goku impression. It was like nails on a chalkboard.
It was that bad, huh?
It was rough, but the crazy thing is Erin seemed to find it endearing.
No way. She liked the bad impressions.
Yeah, and she even agreed to a second date and specifically asked him to work on his dolphin impression.
So bad impressions are the key to her heart.
Maybe. Or maybe it was just that he was willing to be so vulnerable. You know?
Right. Like he wasn't afraid to look silly.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something kind of charming about that.
Definitely. Like he's not taking himself too seriously.
Exactly. And I think that can be really refreshing in the dating world.
Especially when everyone's trying to present this perfect image online.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you had Ginge's date with Kachi.
Oh, right. The one where he had to end every sentence with, I love you.
That's the one. And I was like, this is going to be a disaster.
It sounds like a recipe for cringe.
It does, but somehow it actually ended up being kind of sweet.
Really? How so?
Well, Kachi seemed to see through the whole forced quirkiness, you know?
Okay.
Like, she could tell that he was genuinely interested in her.
So she saw the man behind the catchphrase.
Exactly, and I think she appreciated that.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
It's like those challenges actually brought out their authenticity.
Yeah, because they were forced to be a little bit vulnerable and step outside their comfort zones.
And in doing so, they showed their true colors.
Exactly, and that can be really attractive.
Absolutely. So we talked about the awkward moments, the cringe, the surprising connections. But we can't forget about the grand finale, the double date with Sophia.
Oh, man, Sophia, she's a legend.
The woman who flashed them in the initial round.
That's the one. And for this date, they had to act like train enthusiasts.
Train enthusiasts. Okay, this I gotta hear.
Yeah, and it was just as weird as it sounds.
I bet. So what happened?
Well, at one point, one of them says, "Can we run a train on you?"
Oh, no. They did not just say that.
Oh, they did. It was so cringeworthy.
I'm dying. How did Sophia react to that?
She just brushed it off with a, "We'll see how the next date goes."
She is so cool.
I know, right? Nothing phases her.
It's like she's the conductor of this whole crazy train.
Exactly. And Ginge and Danny are just along for the ride.
So after all the chaos, the cringe, the unexpected connections, what's the takeaway from this deep dive into Sidemen dating?
Well, I think it's a reminder that dating is a weird and unpredictable game.
Yeah, there's no magic formula.
No rule book.
What works for one person might completely bomb for another.
Exactly. And sometimes the most unexpected approaches lead to the most surprising connections.
Right. Like, who knew that bad impressions and forced I love yous could be so effective?
It's wild. But I also think it highlights the importance of being yourself, you know?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, people are drawn to authenticity.
Exactly. Like, even with all the producer shenanigans, Ginge and Danny were at their best when they were just being themselves.
Even when those selves were being pushed to their absolute limits.
Exactly. And I think that's a valuable lesson for anyone who's navigating the dating world.
Be yourself, embrace your quirks, and don't be afraid to show a little vulnerability.
Well said. Well, I think that about wraps it up for our deep dive into the Sidemen's dating escapades.
It's been a wild ride.
It has been full of cringe laughs and surprisingly heartwarming moments.
And a lot of food for thought.
Definitely.
Oh.
So if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the full video.
It's an experience you won't soon forget.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.